I think that a lot of our fear about sexuality and our bodies comes from a lack of knowledge. But I think the more you know surrounding a subject, the more you can have like a grasp on what's actually happening with your body.
Katie, let it out with Katie. Let it out with Katie Dalebout, enthusiast and curator of people and ideas you need to hear.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Happy New Year again. Thank you so much for listening. You are listening to Let It Out with me, Katie Dalebout. Just to be clear, that is the podcast that you have in your ears right now. And I'm so happy. Thank you so much for listening. As always, this is my favorite thing that I do with my time and put out onto the internet. So thank you for listening and letting me keep doing it. And thank you to today's guest. I'm really excited about this interview finally airing. I actually recorded it in person several months ago and it was still hot outside. And it's one of my Highlight Detroit episodes because Zoë Ligon, founder of Spectrum Boutique, which is a sex-positive shop based here in Detroit, she is also a visual artist. She does a lot of really cool collage art, and she is a sex educator and a sex writer. She writes for Refinery 29, which I think is how I originally found her work. Or actually, I think I met her in person at one of the shows she was doing. My roommate also had a booth at the event. It was like a Valentines Day artist market with a lot of cool local artists, and my roommate is one of them, and Zoe was there and she was so nice, and I met her and started following her on Instagram, and we just became Instagram friends. And then next thing I know, I was at her house interviewing her for the podcast, and now you're about to listen to that. So I'm trying to keep this intro short because it's a very long episode and I'm kind of sleepy right now, so I hope that I even make any sense. I just came back from LA last night, very late. I was on the red eye and realized that I hadn't gotten the podcast ready for this week. So here I am recording this intro. I hope you guys have had an amazing 2017 so far. I have. I've already been on a great trip. I was in LA for a week visiting my best friend Amanda and other podcast guest Carly Gross. She's been on 2 episodes. But it was just a really great time, lots of girl time. And we talked about sex, which was really, really cool and fun and something that I used to get really timid and cringy talking about. But if you are like me, this episode is for you because we talk a lot about sex. And Zoe is someone who is so inspiring to me because she is so open and raw and real when it comes to sex and sexuality and just everything. So that is something to keep in mind with this episode. We do talk about sex. We talk about open relationships and porn and art and sex toys, and there is some language in this podcast that might not be appropriate for children. And if those things offend you, it might not be appropriate for you. So maybe steer clear of this episode, or better yet, go into it with an open mind and be open to learning something new. A lot of this was very new to me. I didn't know anything about open relationships or sex toys or really anything before this episode, but I learned a lot from Zoe, and I think you will too. So we talk about it's a really meandering conversation per the usual. Like I said, it's 2 hours long. We recorded it in person. Those are kind of the main differences, but we talk about consent and that a maybe is definitely not a yes. It needs to be an enthusiastic yes. We talk about orgasm and how to be regularly orgasmic and why that's so important. We talk about things unrelated to sex. We talked about how having an internet presence kind of gives you the illusion of community, but it's not real. I loved that part of the conversation. We talked about non-monogamous relationships and open relationships, like I mentioned before, which was fascinating and very new to me. So I think you'll find that part of the conversation interesting. And at the end, we had, this is at, like I said, very end of the almost 2-hour or over 2-hour conversation we had. But we had one of my favorite conversations about body image and weight and beauty being subjective of maybe all time, which if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, that's a topic that I always ask the guests about. But I really loved Zoe's perspective on this, and I loved the conversation we got into. So that was really interesting. And you'll notice, like I said, we recorded this summer pre-election, so there are some election references in there that are old that you'll understand and hear. And it's just a really interesting, fascinating, fun, long conversation. So it's just a really chill time. I was at her house. Like I said, we recorded this one in person. And actually at the end, after the outro, I put some outtakes in there of us chatting before we started, I guess, I've like started in quotes, the actual podcast. So if you want to stick around and hear us talking about just like some random things about her store and how we met and nail polish, you can hear that at the very end of the episode after the outro. So stick around for the outro where you'll hear me say the emoji for the episode, which if you've been listening lately, it's been something I'm really loving, which is after my very long rambly show, I'll do a very long rambling outro. And then I'll say an emoji that if you're still listening to I started this like as a joke, but it actually kind of caught on and I love seeing them. So anyway, I got to finish the story. So if you are still listening, I give an emoji like the corn emoji or the walking person emoji, or it's been a bunch in the past. And then I say, tweet it at me or comment that emoji on my Instagram, or send it to me. Those are the main ways. Tweet it or Instagram it at me. And it's really fun because I get to see who is still listening to the podcast. It's like the secret code language that we have, which I really love. So I will tell you what the emoji is at the very end of this episode. And also, shout out to FreshBooks for sponsoring this podcast episode. Zoe's an entrepreneur, and so am I, and maybe you are too. And FreshBooks can help you keep things organized. And if you're not an entrepreneur, it can also help you keep things organized with tax season coming up and just having good financial practices with money. That's something that is so challenging for me, but FreshBooks can help. So if you want to try it, if you want to kick your new year off right with smart financial practices, try FreshBooks. You can get 30 days free. Why not? You get this unrestricted free trial by going to freshbooks.com/letitout and entering Let It Out in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Make sure you do that because then it lets them know that I sent you, and then hopefully they'll still want to keep sponsoring the podcast so I can keep doing the podcast so we can keep talking and having fun and having good guests on. And I probably need a nap at this point, but I love you guys so much. I'm going to go record the outro, and I hope you enjoy this episode with Zoe and me.
Okay. No, we're doing it. Essentially, this is what we're doing. Us hanging out, chatting. I mean, I obviously have told you this a million times, but I just think you're the coolest. So I'm so excited and so inspired by you. And yeah, I just want to have a conversation. So for the people listening, Zoe is my friend, an amazing artist and writer and sex educator and advocate and entrepreneur and the founder of Spectrum Boutique, which we'll hear lots about, I hope. And I'm here with you at your house with Trudy, your cat.
Yeah, she might make an appearance.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
She's right here. She's really pretty. She has green eyes like you. We all have green eyes in this room.
Yes.
Yeah, and we're here in Detroit because we're basically neighbors. I could have easily walked here, but there's like a threat of rain.
It's very rainy.
I don't want to carry this heavy microphone, so.
It is like the best of both worlds here. It's like I got Ferndale at my disposal and like Detroit's like 10 minutes away. I mean, this is Detroit. It's barely Detroit, but everyone makes... All my friends who live downtown have been making fun of me, or just like, people are like, it's so far away. And I'm like, are you kidding? I can get downtown in 15 minutes. Have you ever... Like, I went to LA and I was just like, how does anyone think this is far away?
I know. I mean, Detroit itself is so huge. Like, somebody was telling me, maybe it was you? I don't know who it was. That, like, you can fit all of Manhattan and Brooklyn and, like, the Bronx and Queens all inside, like, Detroit proper. Like,
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, isn't it
That's
crazy?
insane.
Like all of the areas.
That's why I left New York, because it's so dense and terrifying, and I'm getting anxious just even thinking about going there on Wednesday, which is 2 days from now. So I'm.
What? Tell us about the show that you're going to.
I have a solo show at Super Chief Gallery, Brooklyn, which is in Greenpoint, and they were actually the first people to ever write about me. Like, when I was 19, they did this interview that's not even, don't even think you can find it online anymore. But it was, what I remember about the interview is they were just, like, asking me about, like, did you ever have a near-death experience? And I talked about a time that I was, like, having sex and someone, like, put a knife down next to me to, like, but then they were like, oh, I'm just gonna use this to, like, cut the tip I'm about to use on you. I don't know, when I was 19, I thought that was like great things to say in an interview, and my mom read it and was like, what? Maybe it was my dad. Yeah, so they've been giving me love from like day one, and I have shown in group shows there before at a different location of theirs, and this is a solo show, and what I'm doing differently this time is I'm actually framing everything for the first time. Cool. And collages, I mean, it's like all paper, and I honestly keep the edges of each piece pretty raggedy usually, because I'm like, I want to keep as much of the material as possible intact. Yeah. So I just kind of rip it out of the magazine, however it rips out. One side will just be all jagged, and I'm fine with that. But so framing it, everything has been really interesting because it looks so much cleaner than they ever have been. So I've literally, for the past month, been going to every single Value World, which is a chain of thrift stores for people who don't live in Michigan. But I've been getting every single picture frame of theirs and, like, refurbishing them and, like, repainting.
It's like a whole new element to the art.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
It's been a lot more time-consuming, but I think it's a lot more professional looking. Yeah. Not that I ever really bill myself as I don't even really bill myself as an artist anymore these days, but it definitely, like, makes me feel more legit.
Yeah. Well, I think collages are so cool, and I would love to, that's like the one art form, I took a couple art classes in college, and collage was just the one that I liked doing the most. How did you get into it? How did you start making collages? Tell us everything.
Yeah, I think I was actually inspired by a freshman year high school art class where we had to make stained glass, like fake stained glass, and like fill in every panel with like paper, or I chose magazine, and I did like a image of a house on a pond or something, like with a pond in the foreground. And it was really time consuming because it was like gigantic, and it was like for a letter grade, and it didn't really leave an impression on me at the time. But looking at my artwork now and comparing it to that then, I mean, everyone's like, it looks like stained glass, and I'm like, that is really clearly where I got this idea from, is from this like one art project I had in high school.
Yeah. You have some stained glass in here.
I do. My house came with some weird little, I mean, there's one in the window that belonged to my dad that is it's Saint Christopher, I believe, which is funny because my dad was an atheist and my mom was Jewish, and so I'm an atheist Jew technically, but I still have this this Christian iconography in my house. But
I think I did a similar art project, filling in the things, and so you just kept up with collaging then?
Yeah. Well, the way I like to tell the story is when I was 18, I was a dancer, and while dancing can very much be like a visual art form, I remember in high school, like, all the art kids were like, all the guys I liked were like artsy kids, and I was
Where did you grow up? Where is this?
Oh, Maryland. Maryland in the DC suburbs, which actually is really similar to the vibe of Michigan suburbs in a way.
Okay.
But so I had a really big crush on this one specific guy, and I was like, and social media existed, so I was like, oh, what can I put on the internet to like let him know that I'm cool and artistic?
Wait, so he was a dancer too?
No, I was a dancer. He was like an artsy fartsy kid, like painter. And I was just like, nobody's gonna know how cool and talented my brain is. So I made a collage just using the National Geographics that my dad had. It was like pretty standard collage-y. I was like trying to make it weird and stuff. So I just like, made some shit, and I was like putting it on, I think I was using Facebook at that time. I don't know. And I was just like, my art, everyone can know my artistic skill. And no one ever gave a fuck back then, for sure. No, you didn't. No, you did not give a fuck about me, which is what's so beautiful. He also aged so badly, so it's really great to look back on that.
Great.
The one that got away. Thankfully, the one that got away.
And got you to start art, so
yeah.
To that dude.
But I think it's also so funny because, like, I don't really, like, pine after... I think that it's kind of self-deprecating as a teenage girl to, like, be like, I'm gonna do this thing to make him notice me, you know? And I think it's self-deprecating for anyone to be, like, peacocking so desperately for attention. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It just rarely works, and it comes off the wrong way.
I call that, like, I don't, and if I call that, like, you like call things in your mind?
Right.
Because when I call this to myself, because I've done that and, like, do that and have done that in the past, and I call it, like, Great Gatsbying, because I feel like I'm just, like, trying to,
look at my things!
Yeah, like, I'm gonna do this great thing, and then you're gonna, then you'll like me,
then you'll fall in love.
Yeah. It's, like, it's so silly. And sometimes it's subconscious, or, I don't know. We're so weird as humans.
I get, but so I was using National Geographic as my only source, and there was like a very distinct switch over that happened the next year, which was my first year in college. I was living in New York. I went to Fordham University in Midtown, and I went to a flea market and found some vintage pin-up-y porn, and I was like, ooh, this is so crazy and alternative, I'm gonna put this in. And then it just kind of evolved to using, like, the smuttiest, gross, I mean, like, none of them are, they're all kind of gross and they're all kind of not gross, but I mean gross as in, like, just, like, really low budget, like, badly shot nudie mags, where you could just tell, like, some guy who had, like, a digital camera was like, I'm gonna shoot girls in my hometown. And it's great because it's like they're not airbrushed. You can like see the zits on their butt. I love it. It's so much better than like oiled up bodies in Hustler and Penthouse from like, the 2000s onward. It's so much better. I think porn stopped being, like print porn stopped being beautiful to me in like the mid to late 90s, because then it just got so doctored. And yeah, the oily, shiny bodies were a really popular trend in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then I just kind of am like, It's also a legal issue, too. If I'm using really recent nude images, I'm much more likely to get into legal trouble. Although, with art, it's very easy to argue one way or another, but
everything's a remix.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't want to get in legal trouble.
Right.
I'm just trying to, like, make some weird porn art.
Yeah. Well, and vintage is always cooler. It makes for better art. So this is kind of a good transition to the other stuff that you do, because you're not just an artist. So you are a sex educator and have this amazing business. So what did you want to be when you grew up? Have you always been really open about sexuality and fascinated by this stuff? When did you decide that this is what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Right. Well, I first wanted to be a dancer, like a professional dancer. And then when I realized my body was just not built for it, I just have a sucky dance body. Like, I can groove and shit, but, like, no, could never do ballet professionally. So abandoned that dream. Then I remember when I first was in high school, I was like, I'm going to own a business. And my boyfriend at the time's dad, who was a businessman, was like, well, like, what's your business gonna be? And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, wait, maybe I should own a business. So then I took a psychology class my junior year of high school, and I was just like so fascinated by everything I was learning. And I really wanted to become a therapist, or just in some psychiatry field, even if it was research. I was like, this is very interesting. And then I became sexually active when I was 14, and it wasn't really like a choice I made, but it just kind of happened into my life. Like, a thing I've been learning a lot about myself recently is that I'm very bad at saying no to things because like, in as far as consent is concerned, a yes is only a yes in consent if it's like an enthusiastic yes. Like, if I'm just like, yeah, like, that is not consent. You know. And if it's and people often say yes when what they really mean is maybe. And I think as a teen I was saying yes a lot of the time when my real answer was maybe. So I found myself in a lot of sexual situations that were not upsetting necessarily, but I was just kind of like meh. And sex became very pedestrian for me because I've been having it since I was 14. And I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking weed or cigarettes or anything. I was very clean cut otherwise, but I was always sexually active. And I guess sex didn't interest me from like a factual, science-y standpoint until I was around 19 or 20. Because I didn't even have an orgasm until I was 19, which is crazy to think about, being like having sex for 5 years with 0 orgasms. First time I had an orgasm, it was like the first time I had my period. I was like, what? Oh, I know what this is. Okay. And then after I had like this like accidental orgasm for the first time, I was like, whoa, this is a thing. This is a thing I can do. Whoa. And I really nervously ran into a sex toy store one day in the Lower East Side, just like picked up a magic wand, which is still my vibrator of choice. I just like intrinsically knew. I was like, I need the jackhammer of all vibrators. I need the most powerful thing. Got that, got a dildo. And then just through like a little bit of trial and error, I was just like, whoa, I know exactly how to make myself orgasm. This just like took a little experimentation, like I hadn't even tried or put in an effort. I wasn't like, oh man, I wasn't like missing orgasms. It wasn't like a thing on my menu in my head mentally that was available to me. Yeah. So then when I realized I could be regularly orgasmic, it was like a really crazy emotional experience for me. And my art actually led to me being hired at one of the fancy schmancy upscale sex toy stores in Manhattan. And I met someone who worked at the shop, and they were like, your art's really crazy. You'd be like the perfect person to work at this shop. And I was like, okay. I applied during my last year of college and like got in. I immediately got promoted, and so I was like kind of like in low-level management right off the bat. And I just learned one thing after another that kept blowing my mind. And you know, I learned things like everybody with a vulva can squirt. You know, things where I was just like, why isn't this information that everybody fucking learns? Like, this should be like just basic stuff that we all are taught. And even though I went to a high school in a pretty liberal area, we weren't taught about masturbation or pleasure. And I was like angry. I was like, I was sexually active for 5 years with 0 orgasms, and this could have all been different. And I feel like it made me a really good sex educator, because like the bulk of the questions I was being asked were issues that I could personally identify with in some way. Like a lot of people are asking questions about how to become orgasmic or how to become regularly orgasmic. And a lot of people who ask about that are ashamed of the fact that they haven't orgasmed. And to have me, a person selling sex toys, be like, it really hasn't been that long since I had my first orgasm. Like, I have been orgasmic for the same number. I'm 24. I've been having orgasms for 5 years, and I was sexually active for 5 years without orgasms. Like, and I think that just hearing that puts a lot of people at ease, because it's like there is no
totally
right time or like you can be 60 and have your first orgasm. No one teaches us to do this stuff, especially if you're a person with a vulva. They just don't want you to know.
And I think it makes you so much better at what you do because you're relatable, or you can at least relate to people, because I think it's so scary to be like, I'm way on if it's a spectrum, I'm way on the other side to this person who's so sexually free and open, and I want that, and I relate to this a ton, and I think it's like largely why you're so inspiring to me. But if you can be so afraid to say like, oh, I've never had these experiences, or I've had way less sexual experiences than you, or how could I ever be that orgasmic, even when you understand it's so important for your health and your creativity and your relationships and your life in general, to miss this huge part of things. And I think for so many women, unfortunately, for so many people, it's so common to go through life not knowing this stuff. So was that like a big turning point for you, that you just wanted to help people in that way?
Totally. And it's so funny because I started writing articles about sex education for Refinery 29, which was like a pretty big publication to just leap into writing for with very little experience beforehand.
So this is when you're in college in New York?
I started writing for Refinery 29 like right when I left New York, so I was 22.
Okay, so you were here.
Yeah, I was like, I actually, it was like my last ditch effort. I was like, I'm gonna like shop around at all of the places in New York, all the outlets. I was actually trying to get illustration jobs, like with my collages, but they were like, yeah, you can do illustrations for us, but we also want you to write for us.
Cool.
And I just started confessing things in these articles that it was like, I would say something sort of controversial, and there would be a little bit of backlash, but also a lot of positive response. And then I'd be like, well, I just admitted this fact about myself publicly. I can basically say anything I want to. And then I just kind of got more and more deep. Like, the things I disclosed are things I would have never imagined disclosing. Like, I wrote an article about having gonorrhea. If you search my name, like, if you just Google my name, like...
I did before. I have copious notes.
Yeah, it's like woman expresses fear after receiving 2 false positive HIV tests, which is true. I got 2 false positive HIV tests. But like, I think one thing that I still get really embarrassed about that is something I love writing about is how I have a dry vagina. Like, it just, not to say that I don't self-lubricate a little bit, but I remember when I was working at the first shop I worked at, I that wasn't my own, we were supposed to recommend lube with everything we sold because, lube is kind of great for everything. And I would get the craziest responses from people. Like, I would just have people be like, why are you suggesting I buy lube? I don't have a problem. And then I'd be like, well, it's, and like, I would just get like kind of personally insulted at first. Like, do I have a problem because I need lube? That's another thing too. The first 5 years of my life I was having sex, lube was not, I mean, that's not true. I used lube a couple times and it was like shitty lube and I was like, this sucks. And so I was having really like dry, frictiony sex. Like, who would enjoy that? Like, and it's like, why? Okay, so yeah, is it like a little bit annoying to like, get a bottle of lube out and like, it takes a few seconds, but like then you're lubricated and it feels so much better for like both parties generally. And or if you're by yourself, or if you're with more than one other, if you're with 3 people or more. But like that is one for me that's like still really a sensitive subject. Like I'm just like, my vagina's dry and I like still feel self-conscious about it, even though I'm like kind of like out. I'm out as a dry vagina person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's another thing that like, of you saying that, I'm like, oh, good, me too. Like, I think it's like we all just want to feel less alone. So I think the more that you can share things like that and talking about STDs and talking about whatever, I think that's the goal of your art, your business, your like online persona. I think is to help people feel less alone. I mean, that's what my stuff in like a different category, but I think it's the same thing. It's like becoming more of yourself and being yourself expressed. And when you do that fully, you can make people feel less alone. And that's what you do so well, I think.
Yeah, and the you know, the beauty of it too is like I feel so lonely all the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
me too. We need to hang out.
Yeah, right. I'm just like I isolate myself so much, and it is strange how having an internet presence of sorts gives you the illusion of feeling like surrounded by people. Yeah. And I do very much at times. Like, I think...
It could be a crutch.
Yeah, I think objectively, like, I have a lot of friends, and I'm, like, actually not lonely. Like, I feel very loved. I know I'm loved, but I'm still... Like, I'm a really emotional person. I have so much anxiety, and I definitely will just... Like, I'm pretty sure last night I was, like, crying on my couch, just being like, I'm so alone. Like, it's not true, but we all feel this way.
And
everybody does.
I was doing that in my bed with my tissues, having the sniffles, and
we could have been crying next to each other.
We were, like, 2 feet away from each other, basically.
Yeah.
Well, now we know.
Yep, now we know. Could just take a stroll over to each other's houses.
Literally. Yeah. Well, for future reference, now we know we can. I mean, I'm the same way. I feel a lot of feelings. I have a lot of emotion. So what do you do to handle that? Are you in therapy? Do you meditate? Do you journal? What do you do? Do you create art? Do you channel it into your work? What do you do?
Well, I'm really excited to begin journaling with this lovely journal you just gave me, and I can't wait to read your book because there's nothing better than reading something your friend wrote. So, I've been in therapy, like, basically my whole life. My parents got me a therapist when they were separating, and...
When did your parents?
So, the funny thing about...
Are you an only child?
Yes.
Me too!
Yes, I have half siblings, but they're, like, so much older than me that it's just not the same dynamic of siblings, and, so my parents weren't together really at all, but we all cohabitated. Like, they were really good at co-parenting, I think, for the most part, but when I was, like, 12, they were like, all right, we're getting 2 houses. Like, we're not all living. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's really great.
It's, but it was stressful, you know, having 2 of everything and just time management, I guess.
Did you live with your mom?
I split it pretty evenly at first, and then when I started going to high school, my dad lived like a mile away from my high school, and it was a much better school than the one near my mom's house, so I wound up being at my dad's all the time, but my mom and I still saw each other a lot. But I basically only lived at my dad's in my teen years. So what were we?
Well, I don't know. It's tangential conversation.
Yeah, totally.
And it's my job to keep
therapy.
Oh, yeah. There you
go.
So
you know what? It is very relevant because I've been... So, my dad died 1.5 years ago, which obviously, like, requires a lot of therapy.
Yeah.
I've been really good since the 1-year anniversary passed. I am definitely still grieving. It'll probably never stop, but I'm, like, a functional human being again. Yay!
Were you guys really close?
Yeah, we were, like... I think his, like, brain is, like, my brain in an older man's body. You know?
Was he sick? Was it surprising?
It was very sudden. It was the result of an accident. And I was living here, so I was really far away.
Yeah.
Compared to New York, where it was, like, 4 hours away.
Right.
But I still feel very close to him. It is definitely another source of... like overarching sadness that's like I can basically cry on demand whenever I want. Just gotta think about my dad enough.
Yeah.
But so what's really fucked up and no one ever prepares you for about death, especially when you are still supported by your parent, like I was, especially from like I was on his health insurance and stuff like that, and while I was making my own money, it takes a while for you to be fully independent of a parent.
Right.
I mean, I was definitely very privileged in that regard, but I mean, just medical insurance alone, like when you are dependent on a parent and they die, you are trying to like grieve your parent or whatever, and then simultaneously you're trying to battle with your insurance company. And the thing is like you have to also talk to like Cobra, which is like a middleman between the insurance company and you. So it's like you have to deal with like 2 different people. And then there's like things like figuring out how to cancel your family plan, you know, or like just like all those little things that you're like, wow, like this sucks. Like, like so grieving on its own is annoying. So then I got into this situation where I was getting my own health insurance for the first time, and as a result, I was uncovered for a while because there was just so much drama going on with the insurance companies, and it's a very long story. But so I just got new insurance like a few months ago, and I was so excited. I was like, I can finally go back to therapy because I've been paying out of pocket. And
so were you in therapy like when he died?
On and off, because I was also in the middle of moving, so I was also trying to find a therapist in a new city.
Right.
And I'm really particular about my therapists. I mean, especially when you own a sex toy store. I mean, I haven't met anyone who was awful, but it's just like I'm the type of a client that someone might have a lot of personal bias towards.
Right.
So
and I think anybody needs to feel comfortable to be able to be vulnerable with
yeah, like if you low level think I'm like a nymphomaniac or something, like we've got a problem.
Yeah.
So I was really excited to go back to therapy, and then I realized that the therapist I have been seeing on and off and loving doesn't even take my new insurance plan, even though I like verified with the office and stuff. So
insurance is so
currently seeking, just gonna, you know, I'm in the market for a new psychiatrist.
You heard it here.
Come find me.
Tweet at
psychiatrist.
us.
Yep. Come find me. I'm ready and willing.
We're ready. We can tell you all our problems.
Yeah, but you know what? Therapy is... The reason I'm going on this long therapy tangent also is because therapy is another thing people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I love talking about the fact that I'm on Lexapro. I am not ashamed of Lexapro. I love Lexapro. Lexapro, like, saved my life.
It's amazing.
I tried to quit it. That had disastrous results, resulting in panic attacks, and it was not good.
Have you been on it for a long time? Have you been on other versions of it?
I tried taking a few different medications, but Lexapro has kind of, like, I started it when I was 18, and they tried to introduce other medications additionally, and those didn't work out for me. So I've been on it since I was 18.
I've heard that one's, like, the best.
Yes, but it actually causes sexual issues for a lot of people. It can... I mean, I think it may contribute to my dry vagina, but I think I have a dry vagina, like, independently of Lexapro, too. But I'm also, like, such a horn dog that I'm like, you can tone down my libido and I'm still a horn dog.
That's lucky.
But there are definitely moments where I'm, like, really anxious about whether it's affecting it. But so anyway, I like last summer, since I'd been on it since I was 18, I was like, you know what, it's been like 8 months since my dad died and I'm doing pretty well. I'm just gonna quit cold turkey. And that's a great idea, because I was like, I'm strong, I'm fine, like I'm totally cool. I went off of it. I was fine for like 2 months, and then I was in New York and had a really bad mushroom trip. Yeah, like, so that's like totally my own fault, right? I don't fuck with mushrooms anymore.
What happened? Can you tell us?
So I was at a rave. And I was on mushrooms, and it was Father's Day, because what a great idea. Aww. Doing mushrooms on Father's Day. I'm on the dance floor, I'm by myself, I like can't find any of my friends. I accidentally got elbowed in the face by this like really tall person dancing next to me. And for some reason, just like getting smacked in the face, just like I just was like,
yeah, like knocked the wind out of you.
Yeah, I started crying so hard, and I'd only been at the rave for like an hour. I like went back to the place I was staying, and when I got back into the room I was staying in, I proceeded to like lose my mind and like hallucinated, like stereotypical bad trip. Like my body's rotting. Like I won't go into details. It stereotypical bed trait.
Oh, man.
But then after that, I started having panic attacks. I have never experienced anything like that in my life, where, like, it's actual physical symptoms of anxiety that, like, like, it felt like my body was, like, on fire on the inside. And I get back to Detroit, and I, like, had to, like, shutter myself indoors for days. And at which point I went back on my medication, and after like a week I felt normal sort of again, and then I've been good since then. But it's like, you gotta talk about this stuff, because like, I could feel really ashamed and guilty of the fact that I, like, thought I was a big, strong, tough person who could, like, quit my meds. Because, like, I was shaming myself for taking medication, when in reality, like, that was not, like, ever a wise idea. Like, if I really was that curious, I should have done it under the supervision of a psychiatrist, which I wasn't doing. Removing the cat from the table. Literally, not metaphorically. There was,
Hi, Trudy. I think it's so important to talk about this stuff, and I think everybody has different things that work for them, you know, and, like, sometimes it's being on medication, sometimes it's, like, we all have to handle our shit, you know, and different things get thrown at us all the time, and you have a lot on your plate. Like, just the stress, you know, if your dad hadn't passed away suddenly, but, like, moving to a new city and having your own business when you're 24 years old, and being an artist and being a creative person, and then just, like we were saying before, being a person who feels a lot of feelings and is just, like, emotional like we are. I think... And then you just being in our 20s, I think I've been saying this on the podcast forever, and everyone, like, no, I'm a broken record with this, but it's like, I think our 20s are just the second adolescence that no one really tells us about, but that we're completely alone for. And we have to depend on, like, our friends and other people to kind of help us stay sane and get our shit together, you know? And anyway, so
I'm so ready to be out of my 20s. Like, I know that like, I feel like that's the thing I would say around someone who's not in their 20s. They'd be like, you don't, like, you're gonna miss it. But I'm like, I don't know. I'm sick of people not taking me seriously. I mean, I think people do take me seriously, because now I have, like, my foot in enough, like, areas. Like, I've got business, art, writing going on.
Yeah, but you have a very clear voice, and you have a very good platform.
I still feel as though... I mean, the whole reason I didn't jump right into grad school, which I would like to go back to school, is because I'm like, okay, cool, I want to eventually be a sex therapist later in my life, but, like, I could do that right now and go on that path immediately. But, like, who is gonna want a 25, 26-year-old sex therapist? I mean, maybe someone definitely would.
Dude, I would work.
But it's like,
I'd work with you.
but I think, but also, like, if you don't know who I am, which, you know,
right?
Not everyone. Yeah. If you're looking for a sex therapist, my name's not necessarily going to jump out at you if you don't.
You can use your platform.
Yeah.
To build your client base eventually.
Right. But
at
the same time,
have more life experience.
Yeah.
There's a certain wisdom that comes with aging. I think that's really beautiful, and I'm eager for.
I mean, I have a lot of experience with a lot of different partners. I mean, I wrote an article about sleeping with 99 people, which, you know, I wrote that article a year ago, and I still get people being like, can I be the 100th person? And I'm like, that was literally a year ago. Like, what do you think I've been doing in my time since then? I mean, like, so, you know, it's very possible we could have not had sex since then, but, like, you shouldn't be messaging. I mean, message me whatever you want. It all goes into the DMs, whatever. What was I gonna say?
Something about...
Yeah, so I have, like, a lot of, sexual experience with, like, a wide variety of people from many different walks of life. But as far as, like, interpersonal relationships that are, like, full of love and, like, deep commitment, that is a very new thing to me. That I am just now sort of experiencing. And it really is remarkable how I really am just like, wow, I think I know all this stuff about sex, but, like, you know, and I do know things about relationships. Like, I know, like, all the like, I can talk to other people about communication and relationships, but as far as putting it into practice in my own life, that's a totally different story, and one I am like I'm just still learning.
Yeah, it's kind of like the one side of your brain having to instruct the other side of your brain when it's in the moment to do things, and that's a practice I think that I definitely don't have down. But it's like you can know from information and from life that communication is really great and to communicate in this positive way or whatever it is, but then in the moment you just forget all that and like react. And so I think it's about like, I don't know, it's just comes with time, I guess.
I've also, I guess for my adult life, air quotes, I have mostly been in non-monogamous relationships. Like, I've definitely, loved people and been non-monogamous with them. And I've had it be very successful. I mean, a lot of my relationships that were non-monogamous did not end as a result of the non-monogamy. It was outside factors, and I think a lot of people assume, like, oh, did it just end because, like, one of you grew too jealous? And I'm like, no.
So when you say non-monogamous, that means both of you were, like, aware, and it was a conversation?
Yes. Non-monogamy is an umbrella term that I use. There's many different specific definitions that people in the sex ed community will like ascribe to this, but for me, non-monogamy is the umbrella term which houses polyamory, which houses swinging, which houses cheating, although that's non-consensual non-monogamy. It's just like anything other than two people in a closed circuit.
Okay, got it.
Ideally, people are open with each other, but
sometimes
cheating is non-monogamy, and
but your situations weren't that.
No, we were always honest. There's only been one time I've ever cheated, and I immediately like took action the following day and ended the relationship as a result, which is what should have happened from the get-go. But yeah, you know what I love about non-monogamy is it like forces you to communicate so much more than you would otherwise, and it also, it's not like it's a free pass, but I think that it makes people feel a lot more comfortable being like, look, like I'm having all these feelings and I'm just gonna tell you all of them, because it's like you're encouraged to do that. If you're not doing that, then you are like, just because you're not having conversations doesn't mean that all is well in a relationship. It means that you're not communicating. I mean, I think the two most perfect people for each other realistically will still have miscommunications and like times where they're frustrated with the other person.
This is fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, most of my non-monogamous relationships sort of manifested as like there's been times where I've had two different primary partners where like I was mostly intimate with two people that knew about each other, and for the most part that would take up most of my time, but sometimes I would like see someone else on the side sort of, but never like if I were to meet a new person, I would have to inform them of my present situation. I mean, maybe that's not there's so many different ways that it can manifest. I mean, like, so that would be what I would call a V, meaning I'm the base of the V, and then the two people are the two arms of the V. There's also W's where there's, I have two partners, and one of those partners has another partner, and that person also has yet another partner, and we all know about each other, and we all chill and hang out, and I'm not sexual with my partner's partner, but we spend time together, and that's fine. And I mean, that's just the ways it's kind of manifested in my life, but there's so many other times where, there's definitely like poly families where everyone's in love with each other, or, there'll be more than two people involved who are all in love with each other and they're all in a relationship with each other, but there's just so many ways it can.
I think it's good to talk about this kind of thing too, because none of it is really shown in the media and people don't know how to talk about it.
Especially not in the Midwest. Oof.
Yeah.
When I I first came here, I felt like
this is
an
blowing
alien.
my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, like when I first came here too, while I have had non-monogamous relationships here that worked out very well and everyone was very happy with the arrangement, there was so many times where I would start seeing someone, I'd be honest with them, I'd be like, look, like, you know, as soon as it like moved anything past just like purely sexual, I mean, and I would talk about it then too, but I would also be like, look, I'm a non-monogamous person. If you think that like this is likely not going in a monogamous direction, and I would say that from the get-go, and people would be like, oh, totally, like this is new to me, but thanks for telling me, sure. And then like a few weeks would go by and they'd be like, nope, I can't do this, I'm freaking out, no.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute, now like I'm the heartbroken one, or, you know, maybe that's a bit of a strong word, heartbroken, but I'd be like, you know, like I felt like I'm the one walking away feeling sad a lot of the time, because I'm like, I'm being so honest with you when you're telling me you're down for this, and then like you just switch your mind on me, and that's fine, that's totally fine, I can't make anybody me down.
Do you think some people can't do it, or do you think it just takes, I don't know if I can do it.
I think that no one, I first of all, I think a lot of people who are non-monogamous, I've at least met people who are like, monogamy is a social construct, it's bullshit. I don't believe that. I think that there's people that monogamy makes a lot more sense for, and people that non-monogamy makes a lot more sense for. I think like that
personality type situation?
Yeah, and I don't think that they're mutually exclusive either. Like I definitely am behaving a lot more monogamously presently, although I still don't call my present situation a monogamous relationship. It definitely from the outside would look very much that way. So another thing I'm learning about myself is like, I don't have to be non-monogamous all the time. Like maybe there's a certain person who non-monogamy really works between the two of us, and other times where more of a closed circuit makes more sense, and that can always change during the course of a relationship.
How did you meet your current?
Oh, you know, just like in the social scene and around town. That's kind of like how all the people I've been intimate with in Detroit, it's like it's very hard to not know the people, I guess. I mean, which is why I was also like, why haven't I seen you around? Like, where have you been?
Well, apparently I need to hang out with you more and meet more people.
So I guess just mutual friends. I mean, to take this a different direction too, I am also totally a fan of online dating. I used to work for OkCupid, which is a whole other can of worms. I think that there is no like right or wrong way to meet somebody, and it's so funny because I'll meet some people who are like, I really want an online date, but like, what if we get married? What are we gonna tell our kids? I'm like, you tell them they freaking met online, because they're gonna be holograms and they're not gonna care. Like,
I'm sort of like that. Like, I want a good story. Like, I'm addicted to the story. I like the story. But,
I think a clumsy, honest story is like the cutest sometimes too. It's like.
So are you on dating sites?
Presently, no. Also, online dating in Detroit is very different than online dating in New York or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like in New York, my positive experiences with online dating have really mostly just been in New York. Although, I mean, for every good experience, there is a not so good experience, but my positive experiences have surely outnumbered my negative ones.
Well,
and
it's just more volume.
In Detroit, though, it's kind of like when I have used Tinder or OkCupid, it's just like, oh, I know that person, I know that person, I know that
Whenever
person.
I see someone I know, I freak out and close the app.
I'm like, match. I'm like, let's see if we match. And then I just like use it as a new chat app with that person. I'm just like, we can just talk to each other on here, right? No, but I stopped using OkCupid even before I met the person I'm currently seeing, just because it was just getting pretty dark in Detroit for me personally. I was just not vibing with I just felt like I didn't really have as much in common with the people I was meeting online. Although I think it is a wise decision in such a small community to date people that are not in your friend group for many reasons. I think there's also plenty of reasons it's a good thing to do too. But I think that it's a great tool for just kind of like, you know, if you're meeting everyone that you're intimate with through a mutual friend, it does have more, you know, there's just more things to consider when someone is in your same social circle.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one time last summer that one of the many people who rejected me because I was a non-monogamous person, when he and I were trying to be non-monogamous for the brief period of time, he was like, oh, I've got like a date with someone tonight. I was like, fuck yeah, go for it. And then, like, so I go out that night with, like, some of my girlfriends, and the place we go is the same bar that he's on a date at.
Like a movie.
And we were just like, no. And it was, like, so awkward, too. Like, we just kind of ignored each other, which, by the way, is not the right way to handle that situation. You do not ignore each other. Like, if you can't acknowledge each other in a public space, you should not be doing non-monogamy, you know? It's like, it's gonna happen. So I just was like, cool, he's clearly uncomfortable. I'm gonna give him space. And, like, so he left the bar, and I'm there with my friends, and then my friends are like, oh, we're gonna go to a different bar. Go to the different bar.
He comes there, too?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
2 in a row.
Oh, my
2
God.
in a row. And after that, understandably, he was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, yeah, would have been fine, though. You couldn't even make eye contact with me.
Oh,
and, like, I knew the girl he was on the date with. I was like, I'm fine with you. Like, it's fine. Like, yeah. And that's another thing about non-monogamy is that, like, you're still going to be jealous. Like, just because you're, like, the people who are in the most, like, cemented non-monogamy.
So what feelings did you feel?
I totally can still feel jealous in a situation like that. Although I think everyone feels jealous. There's no such thing as a person who feels zero jealousy. If they say that they are never jealous, they are so lying. It's about managing. What?
Do you think that it's just healthy to feel that?
I think that, like,
you're about to say, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely. I think there's people who naturally are more jealous types, perhaps, but I think that the unhealthy behavior is stifling the feeling. Like, whenever I feel jealous, I actually feel kind of proud of myself because I will, like say to myself, I'm like, I am feeling jealous right now.
Yeah.
That is not a feeling I am excited to be feeling, but I'm acknowledging it, and it's so much easier to move on. And also, I mean, this isn't the right way to see things, but it's like I kind of feel like the bigger person if I'm the one comfortable with it. But that's also, being the bigger person is like me also looking at it from a standpoint of it often ending in conflict in these relationships I've had with people who were not comfortable with it. And yeah, like I do feel you know what makes me feel jealous is, like, it's so funny because I think some people feel jealous about, like, the way someone looks at someone or the way someone might touch someone or interact with someone. And it's, like, so hard to put my finger on. But what makes me feel jealous is, like, if I have feelings for someone and they're interacting with another person in a way that doesn't, like, acknowledge my existence. Like if I have, like, some type of relationship with a person and they're going on a date with another person and I know about it and, you know, they've disclosed everything to their date as well. But if they're not, like when on the flip side, if I am on a date with a new person, I gush about my partner. Like, I'm just like, oh, like, this is the other person I'm seeing. They know about this, and, like, this is what our dynamic is about. It makes that new person also feel a lot more comfortable. Because I've been the new partner in a situation where, like, one time I was seeing a guy who frequently visited New York but didn't live in New York, and he had a mostly monogamous relationship back home, and she knew that he saw other people, and I remember him just kind of being like, oh, she is the greatest. I'm like, so in love with her, and like, just so you know, like, this is never going to usurp, oh my God, I can't say that word. This is not going to replace that relationship. Just so you know, this is like my primary focus. And I was just like, fuck yeah, like, what a lucky person, you know? And to me, that made me like the guy so much more, because I was like, he really values his partner, because he is taking a significant amount of time to like make it clear to me. And I felt a little uncomfortable, like I was just like, wow, like that's really big. But I was like, awesome, that means I'm like also important, that's fine. Like the more information, the more comfortable I feel. And that's not true for everyone. I think every relationship also sets different boundaries. Some people have don't ask, don't tell. Some people will be like, tell me if you have sex, but don't tell me anything else. Or there's so many different ways it can work out, and it's really just everyone's comfort level. And but yeah, like that experience with that guy, that made me realize, like, that's kind of what I want. Like, if my partner is going on a date with someone else, I don't care if they're, I'm just like, have safe sex with them. That's like my first thing I care about, because it's putting both of us at risk if you're not having safe sex. And then, like, acknowledge me, like, talk about me and be like, oh yeah, like, Zoe, she's the coolest. And, everyone's pretty good about that for the most part. But it's also the kind of thing where it's just like always just such an ongoing conversation. Like I don't really, while there are many things that are deal breakers, I like if a partner of mine were to do something that maybe upset me a little bit, I am trying to also not be the person who runs away freaking out and uses the experience to make it a more strong relationship going forward. I think that is also such a benefit of communicating, even when it seems like, oh, we're so fucked right now. You can still come out on the other side and just be like, we understand each other so much better. This is what caused the upset in my partner. This is what caused the upset in me. This is how I can handle my feelings in the future. This is how I can make them feel more comfortable in the future. It's so much thinking. I think a stereotype of non-monogamy is like, oh, everyone's so wild and free and crazy and living their life. It's like, no, it's just like you have to think so much more.
It's like a lot to handle. Mm-hmm. I really liked what you said there about like the naming the judging. I think that's so important. Like, I'm always feel like I'm trying to like do cognitive behavioral therapy on myself of like naming a feeling and then just like trying to understand, oh, I'm feeling jealous, and then you can figure out that that's what's happening and do something about that. But I think in any situation, I'm feeling sad, like first acknowledging it, because I think we go through life like so unaware of our feelings that we're having. So I think it's just good to find awareness. And anyway, let's go back to Detroit. Why did you want to come here? How did you like find out about it? You didn't grow up anywhere near here. I'm so curious about that.
Okay, the first time I ever heard mention of Detroit as a whenever it was the first time it was presented to me in a way that made me feel really attracted to the idea of living in Detroit was I was still living in Maryland, and I was at a festival that does not exist anymore in Baltimore called Wartscape. It was the final Wartscape.
Like a music festival?
Yeah, it was kind of like weird Baltimore music. Like Dan Deacon was one of the organizers, and there's a lot of bands that are now more well known, like Future Islands that was kind of part of that circle, but a lot of also like weirder, bizarrer acts as well. But those are like two of the more notable people who were in it. And my now friends in Lord Scrummage here were playing at the festival, and they had a little table set up, and Lord Scrummage was Alex, who goes by Clyde Moop, and like a few other people. And I think I was talking to I'm pretty sure it was my friend Natalie. Like, my friend Natalie and I have talked about this before, how we were at the same festival before we knew each other.
Oh, that's funny. That's always so funny.
Yeah, and I think I actually talked to her. If not, it was someone else who was like working their merch table. And I was like, the stuff you're selling is so weird, I love it. And they were like, yeah, we live in Detroit. Like, we're gonna have Scrummage Fest. It's really similar to this. You should come. And like, literally, I was like said to my friends, I was like, oh god, we gotta go to Detroit to Scrummage Fest, this is so cool. And it didn't end up happening also because I was like 18 and going to college that year, so but it kind of, like stuck in the back of my head as like a place where shit was happening. And I thought Baltimore was such a magical place, because it's like, it's not New York, it's not LA, it's not like London, or it's not like this like cultural epicenter, but it kind of was to me. In that there was weird stuff happening. It was not about being famous or like social climbing. It was just like, we like making our weird art and we're gonna keep making our weird art. And I just happened to like it. And I was like, I want to absorb your weird art. Yeah. And then when New York started to become a little bit overwhelming for me, I came to Detroit in the fall of 2014 for kind of like a trial stay. I subletted.
So you graduated from college.
I graduated from college a year early, unexpectedly. I graduated in 2013 instead of 2014, and I found out like the year that I was graduating early. Mm-hmm. So I had no plan because I was like, I'll secure my job for graduation or whatever.
You studied psychology?
Mm-hmm. So I just feel like I got farted out of college with like nothing except a degree and a job at a sex toy store.
Yeah.
And so when I had some free time, I went to Detroit for 2 months, and my dad died while I was in Detroit during my subletting. And it was like right in the middle of my stay, and I couldn't go back to my apartment because there were people living in it, and I had no other family in Maryland to stay with other than my dad, who was dead, and I was not staying in his empty house. Right. So I went back to Detroit where I was staying, and everyone was so fucking nice to me. Like, everyone, I remember, I didn't leave the house for the first day after my dad died, but I was seeing somebody here at the time, and he was like coming over, making me food and stuff. And then the second day, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like go out, I'm gonna go to a bar or something. And he and I go to a bar together, and I don't think he said anything, but word had kind of just traveled so quickly that everyone knew I was like the girl whose dad had just died, because I was just like a basket case. And I remember the bartender like going into the basement and like pulling out this like fancy bottle of tequila and just being like, you can have as much of this as you want. And like it's like that's such a small gesture. I mean, it's not to have a total stranger do that for you. That's actually quite a large gesture, I think. But it was just like,
it meant a lot.
Everyone was so nice to me. I felt so cared about, and no one really had any reason to, because I was only living there temporarily at the time, and I'd only been there a month. I didn't have any other friends that had known me for longer than a single month. And then I go back to New York at the end of the 2 months, and everybody in New York just like, if they acknowledged it, they would acknowledge it, but no one really wanted to like go in depth about what had happened. Like, just no one had the emotional capacity, and I don't blame them, because I was also an asshole when I lived in New York too, and I didn't realize that until I got out of there. I was like, wait, everyone here is a robot. Everyone sucks. Sorry, all people in New York. That does not apply to everyone, but like, I was so guilty of that. I was an emotional robot. I know that there was at least 1 year I did not cry, which is like not me at all. And I was like proud of that. I was like, yeah, I'm not crying. Yeah. I was like, why is that something to be proud of exactly? Yeah. Oh, like, because you're hardened and you like are impenetrable. Cool. Like, that's such a surface level way of living your life.
It's different here. I mean, I'm probably going to be crying during this conversation.
Yay! Tears. Yes. No.
That it doesn't surprise me that you were embraced. I think there is, whenever I'm in New York or I'm in LA, like, people can tell I'm Midwestern. And it's like, oh my god, is it the scrunchie? Like, you know, is it what I'm wearing? But I think
Scrunchies
it's,
are the best.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, but I think it is that. It's like we want to go there with people and like have a conversation. And I didn't realize that it was different until people started to say that to me, and that doesn't surprise me. And I'm so happy that people like acted with kindness to you here.
I feel like so vulnerable, but kind of in an exciting way when I'm in a big city. Like, I'll just be so nice to people. Like, I think the last time I was in New York, I was at a coffee shop working or something, and I was just like trying to be so conversational with the person who was working, and they just like did not want to fucking talk to me.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, did you just move here? I was like, no, I used to live here, okay? Like, I was just like, I'm friendly.
Yeah.
Like,
you're my best
like kind
now.
of this like backhanded, like, oh, did you just move here? And I was like,
it's so
no, I just
so
want
funny.
to talk to you.
Isn't it funny how the different locations can change personalities so much? It's fascinating. So, with the work that you do and being a sex educator, do you feel like you're more needed here because people are less open? Can you talk about that a little bit?
For sure. There's been... So, Michigan, I did not know this when I moved here, is so conservative that basically our state government might as well be like... We might as well be a red state. We're so, especially surrounding sexuality. I mean, we still have sodomy laws on the books. Like,
what does that mean?
Technically, it is illegal to give or receive oral or anal sex. Yep.
That's what that means?
Yeah, and it's not enforceable because it's unconstitutional at the federal level. If anyone was ever charged with like, you blew somebody, you're going to jail. You can go to, technically, but our state government says you can go to jail. However, you could just appeal it at the federal, like, God, I see I'm like showing my lack of knowledge about legal stuff. Yeah. You could just appeal it and it would never, you could just take it to federal court, basically, and it would get thrown out. But the fact that that is like written in our law books, and the reason they haven't taken it out is because the law is very closely written with a law about bestiality. So, because bestiality is illegal. And
what does that mean?
You can't have sex with animals. You can't fuck an animal. And that is because animals cannot consent to sex. And so the wording is so closely intertwined with this law about sex with animals which is also, like, think about the fact that we have a law that addresses sex between humans in the same paragraph where it addresses sex with animals. Like, that's super ridiculous to begin with. Right. But so they're just afraid to take it out because they don't want to, like, disrupt that law regarding bestiality. So, like, state government knows that it's not a real law that they can enforce, but at the same time, they're like, we're just not going to touch it. But it's like, no, this is still, like, you go into our, like, code and it's right there.
How did you educate yourself about all of this?
Through trial and error, and also out of the fear of being personally sent to jail. Although I will die on my own sword. Like, if I get sent to jail for something sex education related, I will not be jazzed, but, like, it will be a valid reason to do that. Like, if that sends a message, fine. No, don't arrest me. I don't want to go to jail. But, I talked to my lawyer a lot because actually, so there was an article about the sodomy laws in Michigan and I will get back to your question about why it's sex education is here. We're getting there. We are getting there.
We've got the thread going. Don't even worry about it, people.
I was about to write an article, I had already written it. It was about to be published that week. It was an article about an experiment I did where I played with my butt every day for an entire week. And it was just like a write-up of that. And I was like, great. Am I actually in legal trouble for releasing an article about butt sex right now? Because, like, technically, I mean, I don't know, I'm putting it in words. I was like, I don't know how this could hold up. And my lawyer explained that it's not enforceable. So I learned through, talking to her that I was safe. But, I mean, so to now go to the larger picture, there are so many other laws like these sodomy laws on the books that are just as messed up and just as, you know, like, I don't know, what is this, the 1800s? But, so there's been so many times where I'm like, I'm not wanted here, like, I can't run my sex toy store the way I could in another city.
So it's so much easier.
Yeah, like, it's just, there's so many things preventing me from just full-on free expression here. But at the same time, if I moved to LA or San Francisco or New York, I would just be one of a million sex educators. And I know a lot of other sex educators in Detroit. They're definitely here. But it's just, there's so fewer of us. And
big fish in the small pond.
exactly. It's just like, you know, why would I just, yeah.
If you could have people, because there's people listening to this all over the country. So if you could give people one thing that you would want everyone to know, to feel less alone, to be more educated about sex and their bodies, what would you say?
I think that a lot of our fear about sexuality and our bodies comes from a lack of knowledge. And I mean, and that's not true for everyone. Sometimes like WebMDing stuff is not a good idea. But I think the more you know surrounding a subject, the more you can have like a grasp on what's actually happening with your body. And for so long, I thought I was like the only person who was not having orgasms. And it's unfortunately a lot of women, a lot of women. And the same thing goes for erectile dysfunction. The same thing goes for, you know, like there's so many things that can go wrong with our bodies, or there's so many things that we are really truly not alone for. And I mean, like, part of the reason I was like, I'm gonna write about gonorrhea is because when I had gonorrhea, I tried to Google, you know, like advice for gonorrhea. And I couldn't find anything that discussed, like, practical advice on, like, okay, what do you say when you call your partners that tell them you have gonorrhea? Like, there's no practical advice. So I think, like, just because you can't find another person you identify with that's sharing in your struggle doesn't mean that person doesn't exist. Sometimes you have to be the pioneer of connecting with another person. And I always think it's better to experience these like whatever your issue might be with another person instead of by yourself, because we're so myopic and subjective in our opinions. There's no way for us to truly have a grasp on the bigger picture when we're not talking about what we're feeling as a person who was really scared to share their feelings for a really long time. I think that just not censoring yourself, I mean, certainly there's within reason, you know, we don't share everything on our social medias per se, but I just think just not shaming yourself, which is so much easier said than done, and trying to use your negative experiences to create positive ones, I guess, is also a more general way to look at it. Like, yeah, a scary fucked up thing might have happened to you, but you can find a way to share that experience with other people that will not only educate them and prepare them for if that happens to them one day, but, you know, maybe someone else is dealing with something completely different, and just commiserating with someone else is such a powerful thing. I mean, there's a reason that when I write an article about, like, I don't know, like 5 blowjob tips, that just doesn't have as much traction, not as many people, it doesn't get as much traffic as an article that I wrote about, like, the time I dated someone who had herpes, and why at that time, when I was dating someone who had herpes, that was, like, all that mattered to me. I was just like, what the fuck am I gonna do? I love this person, I wanna have sex with them, I'm terrified of their body at the same time. And then through learning more about herpes, so that's where, like, educating yourself on whatever's bothering you. Through learning about herpes, I was like, wow, I can make a really informed decision, and I know exactly what level of risk I'm at, how I can reduce my risk, And then I wrote about it, and that resonated with so many more people than, you know, like, had a, you know, great butt plugs. Like, it's just like, people, everyone is experiencing something like that, and the more we can connect and not shut down when we're feeling that way.
Well, I think I heard you say once before too, it's really important that you put your real name with your writing, because there aren't very many first person accounts of things, and there's so much shame when it comes to talking about real topics like sex and our bodies, and that's really important to you. So does it make you feel, is it cathartic for you to share what you share in the writing? And just talk about that a little bit.
Right. I definitely initially used a pen name that I very quickly abandoned, and I never really put up the proper security anyway to have people not find my real name. Well, what's really great about it is that, I'm not hiding. I'm saying, you know, like, you can just look me up. I mean, one time I was crossing the border into Canada, and they were like looking me up in the office, and they were like, did you write this? And I was like, yeah, that's me. I mean, it is so difficult too.
What were they like to you? Did they let you in? Were they nice?
They let me in, but they definitely were like kind of like stifling laughter. And this was like a while ago. I didn't have as much online, but it was definitely still like funny Google results. But yeah,
I just went, and they were like, it was a process going over the border. I mean, it was like fine, but anyway, it's like a long story. But they were like, because I was meeting friends that I had met online through this sort of a thing, and that when you tell people that you met people online, they get very confused.
It's like, I don't want to lie to you, but now that I'm being honest with you, I know you're going to interrogate.
Right. So for future, I'm always just going to say mutual friends, like, that's how I met the people I'm staying with or whatever, just to like make things easier. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess, you know, it's pretty as straightforward as how could I send the message of being open and honest about sexuality while hiding behind a person that isn't me? And that is also not to shame people who use pen names, because, you know what, we're also at a large amount of physical risk. People who write about these subjects. I mean, there has been multiple threads about me on 4chan, which, if you don't know what 4chan is, it's just like where every troll in the world lives. Yeah. It's just like land of trolls. And yeah, I mean, like, you can get doxxed. If people know your real name, they can find your personal information. It's not that hard to find it online, which is also why, if you're really concerned about that, make sure you do reverse searches on your phone number, reverse searches on your address, see if it pops up anywhere. Like, my phone number was on the internet, and I had no idea. And it was because I registered a domain for my name with my phone number. And then I started getting weird texts from people. So it's just like, there is also such a good reason to be hidden under a name, and there's nothing wrong with that, because until society evolves to the point where you're not going to get attacked, like, protect yourself. I recently got a security system because I was like, you know, I live in a really safe neighborhood, but I'm not taking any chances, because it just takes one person who is like, I hate feminists, or whatever they're upset about. And then, you know, you've got like a real life problem that isn't on the internet, and that's like, then it just shuts you down altogether. Then you just can't create any more contact when you're feeling scared. So there is also a reason to be anonymous too. Yeah,
that makes sense. So kind of off topic or on topic, I don't know, tangential conversation. What do you think about social media? Do you ever feel like you need to disconnect? You grew up with it, it's always been part of your life. You have this really strong presence and voice. What are your thoughts and feelings about social media?
Right. So I, for the most part, enjoy social media. I think that it comes naturally to me, and that for some reason, the goofier I am, the more of a positive response I get. Like, I can take a sexy photo and, like, a goofy photo, and they'll, like, do relatively about the same as far as, like, the response it gets. I mean, it's so funny to talk about things in that way, doesn't it? Yeah. So I have a lot of friends that are also very heavy into social media, like, it's a chunk of their life, and, you know, for me, social media is, like, really directly linked to business. Like, if I have a post that performs really well on a given day, it directly correlates to my sales, which is hilarious. But it also means that I force myself to create content every day. And most of the time, I am like, yeah, content. And then other days I'm like, wow, I'm feeling really introverted. I do not want to post anything, but I gotta post stuff. And then I never force myself to. Like, there's definitely times I'll take a day off, but it reflects in my sales.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like, a really also an easy way for me to justify it, because I think there's also this, like, shaming culture of people who are, like, taking selfies and whatever. I'm just like, you know what? I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I definitely think that there is, like, a level where it's like, all right, Brenda, you've been taking 10, you know, but it's also just like, you know, it really permeates everything around us. It is also, I mean, it's so weird to try to, like, be meta about a selfie, but I think that, well, first of all, selfies have been happening for a really long time before, you know, phones existed. People were taking photos of themselves on camera, doing self-portraits in other mediums. And I don't think people were as quick to call those people selfish. Yeah. But I also think that, it's like you're not praised for loving yourself aesthetically. I mean, it seems very surface level. I mean, I've definitely, I'm sure, I can't think of a specific time, but I'm sure I've seen somebody been like, oh, they're just so into themselves, whatever. And I'm sure that there's people who think that about me. I mean, I am really into myself. I think everyone should be.
I think exactly. Love is, like, an important thing for people to me, you're such a great example of being confident. And, like, I just want to be around you because you're so positive and upbeat, and I know that that's, like, not, there's so many more dimensions to you, but that's what I have seen. And you're so confident. You're confident, like, sexually, but with your business and with just the way that you interact in the world, or at least what I've seen. So what advice do you have for people to have that level of confidence? What advice? This is all about me. This is selfish. Speaking of selfish, like, I'm someone who records most of my conversations and, like, makes friends with people by the purpose.
Yeah, I've never been like, oh, this person has a podcast. They're so selfish. Like, I don't know. I think it also is a certain level of projection. Like, if someone is like, oh, this person is so vain, that person is probably, like, worried that they are also vain.
Yeah.
And I think vanity is okay to an extent. I mean, everything in moderation.
We're all
everything in moderation.
Yeah, we're all vain.
As far as being confident, I definitely think that there's, like, areas of life where I'm really confident. But also areas of life where I don't feel so confident. I mean, I don't run my business by myself. I have people who I ask for advice from. There's people who I pay to work for me. It takes a team. I mean, I didn't design my website. I hired someone to design it for me. And, you know, I am quite insecure in many ways. Like, sometimes people will be like, your website's so beautiful. I'm like, oh my god, it's got so many bugs. Like, I'm so stressed out, like, about the web development. People are like, really? Okay. And then I realized very quickly, like, no one cares. No one notices the teeny little bugs.
I know.
So, like, why am I making it so
perfectionistic?
You know, not really. Maybe
we all
maybe
can
a little
about
bit.
Things.
Yeah. So I guess, like, confidence. When people are being shitty to you or accusing you of a thing, oftentimes it's projection, but not always. You know what I learned about recently that I'm really into? I mean, I guess I didn't just learn about this, but it was, like, put into more specific context, is calling someone out versus calling someone in. So, like, a call out would be like, you know, you post something that I think is racist and on Facebook, and I comment being like, that was really racist, you, for this and this and this reason, and like I'm gonna put you in your place and blah blah blah. And that is not necessarily the wrong way to handle that. Sometimes that is totally, it's public. A call out is public. But another way of handling that same situation is like sending that person a private message being like, hey, I felt this way from reading what you wrote. You might want to consider the fact that you're being racist. Or like, just like, kind of like more like, you're trying to actually like,
be like, human.
Yeah, or you're trying to like actually create a change. And not that a call out doesn't do that either. I mean, this is also, I'm probably not explaining this the best way. I'm sure there's someone else who do a much better job of explaining this. Oh, I'm so not confident. But I think that like taking someone aside can really actually create like a permanent change in that person.
Totally.
Because then if you
totally on your level.
If you call someone out, they're, you know, probably feeling really embarrassed, more likely, because it's more of a public thing.
And it's like you're talking to a brick wall.
Right. So I think that let me bring this on back into confidence.
Yeah, land this plane.
Yeah, I feel like one way that I don't feel confident is I feel really concerned about the way that other people will perceive what I'm putting out into the world. But I think if you take into account that even if you fail at your mission, like let's say I'm trying to convey this point by, you know, like, or like so I make a statement or something, and everyone thinks I'm a totally shitty person for saying or doing whatever I've done. I try to see it as a learning experience and like be like, okay, like please like talk to me, like how can I do better next time? Like I think that being confident is not seeing a failure or a flaw as the end of the road. And there's so many times I've been embarrassed. There's so many times I've doubted myself. Sometimes the things that I feel the least secure about are the things that are the most exciting and polished to another person. It's so subjective.
Yeah.
I think I am kind of like rambling and not really getting to
That's what podcasts are.
Yeah.
No, that's good. So, do you? I'm kind of going all over the place because I have so many more questions, but we're gonna do them as like quick fire questions.
Yeah, do it.
So, was your dad, and are you still close with your mom?
I am. I'm gonna see her when I go into New York this week.
Nice.
She lives in New York.
Tell her hi.
Well,
Have they always been open with sexuality? Like, did they grow up teaching you about sex? Are they supportive with what you do now?
Yeah, my mom was definitely the person I felt comfortable asking about specific questions pertaining to sex growing up. But it's funny because as I started making my artwork and going into business, my mom's actually probably going to listen to this. Hi, Mom! Hi! She definitely felt uncomfortable with the fact that I think it was like the fact that I was her little girl. And it's so funny because I thought my mom was like a pretty like liberal parent, and she totally is a liberal person. But I think it definitely just changes everything when it's someone in your own family. I think that closeness to somebody can really just skew your perspective on what is happening, and it was definitely a hard thing for me to come to terms with. Like, I definitely beat myself up a lot of it and was just like, like my mom doesn't love me because I'm this sexual deviant or whatever. That was never the case. That was never ever the case. But it definitely took time for her to get familiar with the way I was living my life. But now that she knows that this is me, and I don't think she would ever tell me to live my life a different way. I think she just feels like, I think she also shares in the vulnerability feeling because I am an extension of her. And there have been times I've written articles that have involved my mom. There's been times that trolls have contacted my mom. And it's so funny because I remember one time I was like monitoring this thread about me, where everyone was talking so much shit about me, and they were like, it was some of the nastiest things ever said about me. Like, I wanted to...
Do you still read it all?
Yeah. Honestly, it kind of is like a way to toughen my skin. Like, I love like exposure therapy.
I feel like, I don't know. I don't know. I just want to like come in and protect you and be like, please don't read any of that.
Oh,
you're
you know,
amazing, great.
So I was reading this thread, and I remember them saying like, oh, I'm Facebook friends with Zoe. I'm gonna like find her mom, and then we can just like send her all these like slutty pictures of her daughter, and and so I called my mom immediately. I was just like, hey, you might get contacted by some people who don't have nice things to say about me. Just want to give you a heads up. And she was like, and I was worried that it was gonna make her really anxious, but she was just like, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that this hasn't already happened to us. And I was like, oh, you're so on my team. I love you. You know, it's just like this slow process. But yeah, so like in this same specific thread, it was so good. It was a pretty recent one. People really love to bring up like, oh, like she's probably like her dad dying made her be this sexual deviant, which is so funny to me because I was this person way before my dad died. So I'm like, get your facts straight first of all.
Yeah, and you were already doing it online.
Yeah, but there's like so many people have just been like, yeah, like I bet that she. So like I wrote an article about using big dildos, and she was like, and there was one person who commented like, I bet she just like uses big dildos because like her dad's dick wasn't big enough for her. Just like something like really fucked up that like even just like reading the words just like made me feel like panic attack mode. But like at the same time I'm like, this is the most ridiculous comment I've ever read. Like, it's the kind of thing where it's like when you read someone who like accuses, who like is like, yeah, like she's like so, like her parents must have abused her or whatever. Like it does have this like very like guttural reaction of like, oh my god, like do people see me this way? No, not at all. My parents both loved the shit out of me. Like I was raised so well.
Where do you think you got your sexual education from? Really yourself? And
well, the store I worked at did a lot of the education for me. Like I was very vigorously trained before I was allowed to sell sex toys, as one would hope.
Right.
But then a lot of it was just reading a lot of books, a lot of self-teaching for sure.
So what we were talking about before with like the state of sexual health education is like basically nothing and terrible, and like I feel like I'm basically a teenager when it comes to sex and everything that I've learned. Like, so I feel and I talked to you about this before, like I feel so behind, and I feel like I'm learning so much now. But if you could like have a dream for what sex education would be in this country or in the world, there's a great, like, I think John Oliver or something.
Yeah.
Like, what would you envision sex education being, or what is your dream for that, or how do you want to impact that with your work?
I think that sex education definitely, while a parent should play a role in educating their child, it's definitely not the sole responsibility of the parent, because I think inherently there is such a disconnect between a parent and a child. Like I think there's definitely certain parent-child relationships where it might be appropriate, but I think it definitely does belong in a place of learning, like a school. I think that we should have sex education before puberty, during puberty, after puberty, continuously as adults. I mean, and it's not the kind of thing where I think everyone should be forced to go to sex school. It's just like someone needs to be available for someone who is learning about their body in a sexual way.
Kind of like driver's ed, like a separate...
Sure, yeah. I mean, like, I think the way I was taught sexuality was great on paper. Like, I had sex education in middle school and in high school. But, like, sex education in high school, for instance, was just one small unit in one semester of health class that was mandatory. And it was just like maybe we spent a week on it.
Yeah.
And we talked about anatomy, and we talked about pregnancy, and we talked about STDs, but we didn't talk about like, okay,
they kind of just scare you for a week.
Yeah. I think that having sex education be
That's my
mandatory. I mean, there is a lot of so Obama just basically banned abstinence-only sex education in schools. However, that doesn't mean that teachers won't take it upon their own, and school districts won't, do whatever the fuck they want in the classroom. I mean, just because legislature's been passed doesn't mean that people aren't going to still continue to teach abstinence-only sex education, which, by the way, statistically does not do anything positive.
Right.
Actually, the more, and I mean, there's so many infinite studies to back this up, that pregnancy and STI rates are reduced the more sex education a kid receives. And this is studies by school district and by actual specific samples of students, and it's just across the board. The more information you have, the less likely you are to. I mean, and that's I mean, that's why you see things in the news there was a giant chlamydia outbreak in a high school in Texas where literally every kid in the high school had chlamydia, and it was in an abstinence only area. And I'm not saying that that's a direct one-to-one correlation, but you're not going to stop the behavior by eradicating the discussion of it. That's why I also, and this is a more controversial opinion of mine, I believe in the legalization of all drugs. Just because, if something is made legal and available, it is way less likely to be abused. I worked at a needle exchange in New York, or I volunteered at one rather. My last year in college, so the third year I was living in New York, and it was great. I had no idea what a needle exchange was until I took the volunteer position, but basically the concept is you can bring in a used needle, no questions asked, and you receive a clean needle in exchange. And so the concept is harm reduction, meaning people that are going to be using IV drugs, whether it's legal or not. So let's make sure that they're doing it as safely as possible. And that's not just, IV drugs, but it's also, I guess this is IV, but, people who take hormones, for example, that's an injection, and not everybody has access or can afford clean needles, so they reuse the same needles, or what have you. And I mean, there's plenty of reasons someone would need a clean needle, and just making that service available reduces the chances of hepatitis C transmission, HIV transmission, lots of other infectious diseases. So I mean, it's funny too, because moving to Michigan, where weed is medically legal and I have my medical marijuana card, I am so law abiding. I really just don't break any laws with my substance use, because I have the freedom to smoke weed, and it doesn't pot no longer and I mean, this is a bit of an exaggeration, but pot no longer has this mythical property to it. Weed in Detroit is just as pedestrian as alcohol. It's just as easy to just go pick up an eighth as it is to pick up a handle. So I think taking the mystery and inaccessibility away.
Yeah, drinking is legal when you're younger, and there's less problems with it. But anyway, I think your point is that more education is always a good thing.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the legacy that
knowledge is power.
Yeah. So another thing we always talk about on this show, which has been my biggest struggle that I think really connects with struggles with sex and with intimacy, is body image. So have you ever struggled with body image or had issues with your body? I think so many people in general have. And what have you learned? What have you come to recently?
I wrote an article about this, so for more information.
Oh yeah. I'll link to it.
So about 2 years ago, when I moved to New York, I slowly put on weight, and it was just the fact that I wasn't exercising. I was taking care of myself for the first time in my life. So I was just eating not as healthfully. And I would get remarks about my weight, but they never really bothered me, but they started kind of increasing in frequency. People always thought I was pregnant because I carried all my weight in my stomach, and like to the point where like people would both intentionally and unintentionally, like they would be like, congratulations on your baby, like trying to be really sweet, and I'd be like, excuse me, what? And I would also have people who knew I wasn't actually pregnant say I looked pregnant, which was, you know, just as hurtful. But then I was dating someone who basically very sloppily said something to the effect of, you know, I'm like really attracted to you, but I'd be like more attracted to you if you lost weight. Yeah. I was just like so sick of hearing this shit. And I think I carried my weight really well. Like I never stopped seeing myself as beautiful and sexy. But then like all of a sudden it kind of like all came crashing down with that final blow of the person I was dating. And that was an open relationship too. I was dating somebody who thought that they had the audacity to say that, and the relationship ended, obviously. Or, you know, maybe not obviously. Yeah. But, so then I started losing weight for vanity purposes, and then once I started losing weight, it just kind of came off even more easily, and then it very quickly became about, you know what, like this has nothing to do with the way I look, has everything to do with the amount of energy I have, how I'm taking care of my body. I mean, like I just started feeling better. I was able to stay out later and dance more at parties, and who doesn't love that? I feel really comfortable at this weight. I'm happy to put on a little bit of weight even. And when I go to the gym, it's very much about putting on muscle instead of trying to be a slim, wafy girl. Because, I mean, like, I definitely, I think that I just, like, look healthier in general. I'm just definitely taking care of my body a lot more, and that also just affects my mental health positively so much, too. So, having gone to the upper regions of my, you know, bodies, like feeling overweight at one point and then kind of coming back from it. It's strange because I looked back on naked selfies I took of myself at my heavier weight and genuinely just been like, oh my God, my boobs were so big. Whoa. You know, like I kind of like had this same sense of yearning for that body type as I did when I was heavier looking for my thinner body type. So the grass is always greener, and that's not to say that, you know, eat a bunch of junk food because, you know, weight doesn't matter.
But body diversity.
Exactly. And our bodies change naturally just because of the courses of events of our life. I mean, there's so many reasons our body shape and weight can change, and it's hard for me because I feel like I'm in such a delicate position where I have a stable weight, but I'm still like, oh my God, like what if I just start inexplicably putting on weight again? And like I'm just like, shut up, stop thinking that. Yeah, it's like I have to reassure myself, like, yeah, like obviously my level of worth has nothing to do with my size. And I would even, not that this is necessarily the right way to approach this either, but I like had sexual partners of mine who I was intimate with during my heavier weight and after my weight loss or before I gained weight. And everyone who I was intimate with was like, you know, I genuinely never cared. Like, I noticed you gained weight. Genuinely was never a thing that upset me. Or, in fact, I kind of liked it. Your butt was so big and I loved it. You know, it's just like, there is...
I think that's great.
You can look at anyone's body, really. Yeah. And that's, and not just about like weight. I think that like beauty is so subjective, and I know for a fact that there are people who do not find me to be an attractive person, and that is okay, and that in fact makes me happy, because I'm like, you know, beauty is just so subjective. Like, I'm so cheesy, but it's so true. So true.
No, I think it's important. It's important for people to hear over and over again, because the media largely shows us one type of body shape and tells us that that's the ideal, and if you're not that, then you're not good enough, and people won't like you and romantic partners won't like you. And anyway, so that's why I always like to talk about this. All right, I could talk to you way longer, but let's do these quick fire questions that I ask everyone.
Sweet.
Okay, so just kind of say the first things that come to your mind. You can take as long or short as you want with them.
Great.
All right, so what are some of your morning routines and the first few things you do when you wake up in the morning, how that affects how the rest of your day goes?
I pee because my bladder is very small. Peeing, very important.
First thing.
Check my email. And if I'm in bed with my partner, then I snuggle for a little while. If I'm by myself, I snuggle with myself. I rarely leap out of bed, but sometimes I do.
Are you a morning person or a night person?
I am definitely a morning person by nature, but I hate getting up early. But like once I'm up, I'm like the jazziest person, and I'm like an obnoxious camp counselor. Like, let's go, yeah. So yeah. Although I think staying out late is cool, but it's like not my natural tendency.
What about the evening routines? What are some things you do in the evening to wind down, to de-stress?
Smoking weed. Smoke weed every day, for sure. That's just me.
Before. What are some things you do, like the last 3 things before bed? Probably
peeing. Put on chapstick.
Ooh.
Drink more water. I like to only get in bed when I'm like super exhausted, because there's nothing worse than laying in bed just like being so restless. So I try to like wear myself out somehow, whether that be with exercise or like just reading until I get really sleepy. I'm trying to not watch as much TV before bed because it's not good for you. But yeah, chapstick, peeing, weed. Yeah,
essentials. I think I was listening to another podcast, and in Colorado there's like a lot of like weed cultured like things that like the wedding stuff and like all sorts of things, and there's like a weed chapstick. So you could like kill 2 birds with 1 stone potentially.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a big question, but what is the legacy you'd like to leave behind in your work and in your life?
This also is going to sound so cheesy, but I really think that
I should just name my podcast the Cheese Cast.
Yeah,
it's always cheesy, and I love it.
I think that
not dairy free. Yeah, that'll be the subheadline.
Yeah, I think that honestly, just having one person tell me that I helped them a lot with something in the sexual department, which has already happened, so I already feel like I honestly,
good job.
Like I feel like I could just do this infinitely, but I'm really trying to work one-on-one with people, and I definitely feel so overcome with emotion when someone's like, oh, that book you recommended to me just helped me so much, just the tiniest little things like that. Someone will just send me an email sometimes saying how a thing I wrote or a thing I said really helped them, and that honestly is all I want. I mean, am I making money off of doing this? Like, yeah, like a little bit, but like you do not go into the sex industry to make money. At least the kind of sex industry that I'm in, it's really not like I didn't invest in real estate or something if I want to do that. So it's very like, it's definitely an emotional reward more than anything else. So legacy, that would be cool. But I feel quite satisfied as is, just knowing that these things are helpful on a practical level for people. And if like someone has gonorrhea and finds my gonorrhea article and feels better, that is just like, that is the bee's knees right there.
Yeah, people are feeling less alone, like we were talking about before.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of your life right now?
Pretty happy with my relationship. I'm also feeling the most in control of my anxiety, and that's hard to say because I still feel so stressed out all the time, but I feel like I'm really able to take a step back from it all and just be like, remember how you were freaking out last week and everything was fine the next day? Well, it's just like that. You're freaking out. It's going to be fine. Like, I'm really able to just kind of like suck myself out of my body.
See the big picture.
Yeah, I think I'm getting better at that. And I think like that my happiest moments are moments where there isn't some worry or some rumination running through my head, and the more moments I have at peace like that are just gonna make me such a better person in the long run.
Somebody told me recently that, like, if you asked yourself, what were you worried about a year ago today, you'd be like, I don't know. And so it's kind of crazy that we stress ourselves out and have these worries, and most of them, unless it's like a really big thing, will even matter to us at all in a year. So, okay. Favorite color?
Mint, green, and peach.
Favorite day of the week?
Sunday and Monday.
That's funny. Monday and Sunday are so, like, different from each other.
Yeah, well, they're the biggest sales days for me. But also, I like Mondays because I don't have a traditional work schedule, and the world kind of quiets itself down on a Monday. And while it is, like, a little stressful for me to return to work also on a Monday, I like how everyone's still a little bit, like, getting back into gear.
Yeah, well said. I like Mondays, too.
And Sundays are nice because that's the day that everyone is generally the most free in the daytime.
Yeah.
I'm all about the daytime hangs.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Let's have a daytime hang soon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're trapped on a deserted island, and you can bring with you one TV show, one book, one person, and one beauty item. Go.
Okay, TV show. So difficult.
First one that comes to mind.
I'm like, my first instinct was Oz, even though that's like the world's most depressing show.
I've never even heard of it.
It's a show about a maximum security men's prison. My brain is so dark. I like watching really fucked up things because they make me feel like my life situation is like so much better. So by comparison, I always feel like very uplifted by very upsetting things.
Makes sense.
But I was also going to say Seinfeld, because does Seinfeld really ever get old?
Never.
No, it doesn't.
I was watching when I was sick. And, like, last night I was watching.
Beauty item, I would say...
You have amazing eyebrows.
Oh,
Your
thank
eye makeup
you.
looks fantastic.
Anastasia,
I
eye
use it
pencil.
too.
Yep.
I use it too.
I'm gonna say silicone lube because it technically is a beauty product. It's a hair defrizzer and also really great for cutting against chafing, which is like really probably gonna be happening on a desert island. So silicone lube, Uber lube, I'm really into.
Multi-purpose.
It's also makeup primer. So many uses. But it's also sex. Let's see, a person. Oh, I can't just pick one.
Okay.
I'm gonna say my best friend Abby, even though love you mom, love you dad, love my partner, love all my other friends so dearly much. I haven't even seen her in so long, but I've also known her since I was 5, so I would bring her with me and we'd make fart jokes all day. But also I want to take everybody else with me, I swear.
Yeah.
And what was the last thing?
Food.
Oh, food.
That you wouldn't get sick of.
Okay, this is not a practical food because this would not be full nutrition. Because like if I was going for like complete nutrition, I'd say durian. But
yeah, which is also good.
filet mignon. Okay, wow.
What's been the best part of your day so far today?
I dropped my car off at an auto shop that was walking distance from my house, like a mile and a half, and I had like a nice walk, and I don't do too much walking, and it was just like a real.
I do a lot of walking. We should do walks together.
We live in a walkable area, thankfully.
We do. Best meal you've eaten in the last week?
Oh my god! I hope that my cat's purring was audible. The best meal I have eaten.
Or one that comes to mind that was really good.
I've been honestly really obsessed with the prepared Indian food from Trader Joe's.
Yeah, Indian food is amazing.
God, I'm the worst.
I googled like tips for stuffing. It was like how to heal a stuffy nose naturally or something, and the like first thing was Indian food, and then all day I've been craving it because I think just like spiciness.
Yeah, it's awful too because there's like
list.
all this good Yemeni and Bangladeshi food in the area, and like I'm just like Trader Joe's Indian food, like fucking.
So you're a writer, and have you been writing for? Did you always have a talent for writing? And I want to know like what productivity tips you have and what your writing process is. Do you just like sit down when you're inspired, or like how does that talk to us about any writing tips?
I mostly only really write these days when I have a specific writing assignment for one of the publications I write for, so it's very easy for me to be motivated when I have a very specific thing to write about, and oftentimes it's a piece that's directly based off a pitch I have, and I collect my pitch ideas just by having a thought, and I like whenever the thought floats into my mind, I put it into like a little iPhone note, because if I just try to sit down and brainstorm ideas, it doesn't happen. So I really just kind of let them naturally pop into my brain and collect them, and then when I have enough pitches, I submit them. So it's really easy to write based on that, but I also just kind of try to write about whatever I find myself talking about with friends on a regular basis. Like I really want to write about my self-discovery with my difficulty saying no to people, like I was mentioning earlier, because I've been talking with so many friends about that. I'm like, yep, gotta write about that.
And it's a relatable thing.
Yeah, so it's like if it would be a boring thing to say to your friend, it would probably also be a boring thing to write an article or
that's such a good
piece about. You know, if but I mean, that's not to say there aren't things that need to be written that aren't like as engaging or fun and lighthearted. But
yeah, totally. What's the best advice you've ever gotten and the worst advice you've ever gotten?
The best advice I've ever gotten is this is definitely not like the best. This is just what I'm like thinking of. Comes to mind because my dad always used to say this: you can please some of the people all the people, or all the people. You can please some of the people all the time, or all of the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time.
That's a good one.
And the worst piece of advice I've gotten is put garlic in your pussy to cure a yeast infection. Oh, cat butt. Ooh. That, it works for some people, it doesn't work for me, and I just wound up having a very garlicky pussy.
I think that's a great example. That was also on my home remedy list for clearing a stuffy nose. Garlic is like this cure-all, apparently. But I hate garlic, so it's not going anywhere near my nose or my vagina. But I think it's a good example of like holistic stuff works. This whole conversation too with like holistic stuff works some of the time, and sometimes you need to take antidepressants, and sometimes you need to, have surgery, or sometimes you need to use the monostat or whatever.
Totally.
And like,
I've had so many people try to like play doctor with me, and I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how dare you tell me to smoke more weed and my depression and anxiety will go away? Or like, I posted a selfie with monostat one time, and everyone was just like, ew, that stuff is toxic. And I'm like, well, it's the only thing that frickin' works, so shut it.
And you know your body more than anybody
Everyone's
or
different.
The internet ever.
Great piece of advice. Everyone's different. It just kind of pertains to
everything. Just that's the only thing. If you take away one thing from this podcast ever, everybody's body's different. Everybody's tastes are different. Yeah, all of it. So you're having a dinner party, and you can invite 5 people. Who do you invite? What do you hope someone turns and asks you at the table to talk about, and what do you hope no one asks you that you don't want to talk about, and what would you make /eat / pick up?
I would invite... I'm not going to go with actual people I know. I'm going to go with people I don't really know.
Okay.
I'm going to invite... Dan Savage, another great podcaster. I'm going to invite Kim Kardashian. Sorry. I'm going to invite Johnny Depp because he's a fucking asshole. I'm going to invite... and I wanted to, like, have his babies when I was little. I'm going to invite... this collection of people is really showing off my I'm gonna invite Octavia Butler, the sci-fi writer. I'm really into her right now. And I'm gonna invite... definitely Jesus.
Nice. Just round it up.
He was so not a messiah, but he was so a person, and like his life matters. I would really hope that someone would ask me to hang out with them again.
That's such an obvious thing. Why has no one said that on this podcast before?
Except for Johnny Depp, he can go fuck himself. I hate that guy. I would literally just invite him to like tell him how much.
Why is he such an asshole?
He abuses his partners. He's an alcoholic,
really?
and he needs help. And yeah, he needs to seek a mental health professional. But like, I'm just like, I was such your biggest fan, John Depp. Where'd you go? Why'd you fall off the boat, man? Why are you such a dick? I believed in you. Oh, like you don't even understand. Like I read a biography of Johnny Depp's life when I was like 13. Like that is how much I cared about this.
Oh my god. He let you down.
God, I like seen every one of his movies, even his shitty ones. Which is most of them, sorry. I would hope that nobody would ask me like about like maybe like when the last time I took a shit was, like, because I just wouldn't, I'd be like, we're at dinner, why are you asking this?
Yeah.
And I would prepare, like, the only food I actually know how to prepare, which is this, like, kale salad with this really yummy dressing I know how to make.
Yeah. Can I come over for that?
Yes. Curried lentils, because that's another thing I know how to make, and then I'd make salmon. Those things don't really, like, go together, but those are the things I know how to make. Oh.
I feel like that'd be like a great like round that would like be a beautiful like Pinterest perfect plate.
Yeah, I would that and then for dessert we'd have creme brulee and ice cream.
Yum.
And the centerpiece is on the table would be dildo bouquets.
Amazing. Yeah. I would totally crash that party. Okay, so what do you think happens when we die?
Nothing.
Dead over?
Yeah, we're dead and over. I believe in like there being a non-physical presence that inhibits our body that is like non-denominational. Like obviously there is a spark of life in our bodies that exists. It's just like, it's not a spiritual thing to me. It's just like a thing that we can't, it's just too meta for our own brains to comprehend. And I think that we just kind of like, I do think we vanish. But at the same time, I think that like death rituals are very much for the living, and like I definitely feel like my dad's soul or whatever you want to call it exists within me somewhere, like in my own mind.
Yeah.
So I think that people only live on really through memory.
Somebody told me, or not someone told me, well, I guess they did. On a podcast I heard that when you die, like right before you die, something like DMT, or maybe it is actually like DMT releases, so you think, so that's like people when they're having like near-death experiences or like they see things, it's actually this like biological thing that happens to everyone right before you die. DMT releases, so it's like this other dimension or something. So I don't know if it's true or not, and I guess no one will ever know for sure.
Totally hallucinated some stuff that I could have sworn was real, and that is definitely what I think is going on when people swear they've met God.
Have you heard that too, about the DMT?
Yeah, well, like DMT is a naturally occurring molecule in our body's chemistry, but it's also a drug that you can synthesize and take. But yeah, I think like dreams are very similar to that experience too.
So, okay, so last little part before my last question. So, do you want to recommend a movie, a book, like song, or podcast, or all of the above? Just anything that you want to recommend to people that lately that you've just liked and want people to know about?
Movie-wise, I would like to recommend Tickled, which is a documentary that came out recently about the competitive tickling industry, which is not what it all seems. It is kind of begins as a lighthearted documentary, but then as the documentarian kind of like delves deeper into the subject matter, he realizes that it's actually this like elaborate way that basically one person with a lot of money has been taking advantage of people for decades by offering them large sums of money to tickle each other on camera, but then will use the footage to blackmail these people into basically becoming like, it's kind of like this like financial domination thing disguised as tickling, and it exploits people. I can't even talk about it more without kind of spoiling it. It's called Tickled. It is probably in some theaters. I saw it at the Main Art Theater nearby. Fantastic. Book-wise, I think Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler is a really relevant read right now. It is a sci-fi, like dystopian future book. And I think, going into an election cycle that could be fucking terrifying if the Cheeto ends up as our president. I think it's kind of like a glimpse into a future world where we have a really corrupt government, and yeah, just read it. It's so relevant right now.
Cool. Anything else? Any music or podcast or anything else?
I love 99% Invisible as a podcast. Cool. It's just kind of about the day-to-day stuff or things that are very in front of our face that we don't understand the intricate inner workings of, and it covers a wide variety of subjects. Song... I don't have a favorite song, but I really love Caribbean music and soca music, and just kind of search like Caribbean, Trinidad, soca 2016, listen to the like top 40s in that genre. I love them all. Yeah.
That sounds fun. We should have a dance party. All right. I keep saying one last before the last one, but I just want you to plug and promote anything. And I meant to ask you, I love the name of your store, Spectrum. Can you tell everyone, because I heard you talk about it, how you got that, and when did the idea come to you? And I love it. Right.
Well, I'll be honest, the name was definitely borrowed from a gay club that closed down, unfortunately, in Brooklyn that was called The Spectrum. And I just had some really great times there. I loved, it was just like a very safe space in many ways. And I just also really loved the name. I thought it was really appropriate for a sex toy store. It's also just like not as obvious as some other, it doesn't like blatantly say sex. But at the same time, it's so relevant because gender is on a spectrum, and kink is on a spectrum, and sexuality itself is on a spectrum. You can be asexual or sexual or any shade in between. So just literally, and it just goes for everything too. I really just want everyone to move away from the idea of like dichotomies in general. Obviously, gender binaries we really need to move away from for everyone's sake. And yeah, to just like not see things as black and white. Know that there are so many ways of in between to be and behave and feel and identify and express yourself.
Cool.
Yeah,
I love it. So I'll have all the links in the show notes to where everyone can find you, but so we'll have all of that, and your Thongria on Instagram.
Yes.
So how do you feel? Do you feel like you need to let out anything else? The name of this podcast is Let It Out. Do you wish that I would have asked something? Do you feel...
You were so thorough. You were the thoroughest.
Are you as, like, tired as I am? I feel like it takes it out of you to, like, have a...
That was a really...
8-hour conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we, like, went to many different realms.
Very tangential conversation.
Like that we kind of talked about less of the obvious subject matters. I mean, like, I will...
To blow my nose.
Yeah, go for it. I will recommend sex toys. Like, I mean, like, if you want, like, what's the best sex toy? Like, I just get asked that so much, and I love answering that question, but I think that there's so many obvious questions you can ask a person like myself, and I
feel like that information is easier to find
totally on the internet for sure. I think that, like, by asking more specific, less blatantly obvious questions pertaining to sexuality, it actually goes to a deeper level of talking about very relevant and universal information regarding sexuality. Like, we went from mental health and orgasms and death and online trolls and
all the things.
Desert island things.
All the things. We did it. So, did you have fun?
I did. I'm so happy that we finally did this. We've been meaning to do this for forever. Long.
I know, and we made it barely. My computer's about to die. I'm about to fall asleep.
Oh.
This is amazing, though.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, jinx. Yes.
And I hope that everybody checks you out and follows you, and we'll hang out a lot more, and hopefully collaborate more, and just. I'm so excited to know you, and I'm so grateful. You're such an awesome, cool person, so I'm so glad we connected.
Yeah, I think the last thing I might say is email me and just, like, send me questions. I love answering.
You get back to everyone.
I do. Sometimes it takes, like, a day, but I always answer questions that are serious and not of an inappropriate. I mean, that inappropriate is relative, but if you're asking me if you can fuck me, you're not fuck off. Yeah.
This is a very
thing. If you have any questions about sex, though,
no one here is.
I will not judge you. Just don't send me a dick pic, or do, and be prepared for me to
give
you a very honest.
No one who listens to my podcast is going to do that. I'll listen to this.
Yay!
We did it! Amazing. Thank you. You're so
All right, there you have it. That was the episode. I hope you learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot in that episode. Man, did I learn a lot. Zoe is really cool. I highly suggest you follow her. Check out her art, check out her store, and keep in touch. The emoji for this episode, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about this before. Ooh, I gotta go look at my phone. One moment. Okay, I'm back. The emoji is the eggplant. I'm just doing it. There you go. It's the eggplant. So tweet at us the eggplant emoji if you are still listening right now. Thank you so much for listening. I adore you guys. You guys are so awesome. I also adore FreshBooks.com because thank you, FreshBooks, for sponsoring. You guys are awesome. If you listening want to have really great, strong financial practices, keep your business on track if you're an entrepreneur, or maybe just for yourself, keep things organized, go to FreshBooks.com and just get the free 30-day trial. It's unrestricted. That's great. It's also helpful to the podcast because you're supporting the podcast by doing it. So you go to freshbooks.com/letitout and entering Let It Out in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Also, if you want to support the podcast, you can also leave a review. You can also share this podcast with a friend. You can also, those are the main things you can do. Oh, you could leave my book a review. I was thinking there was another thing. Anyway, check out my book. My book is called Let It Out, A Journey Through Journaling. Makes a great, belated Christmas gift or a gift for yourself if you haven't read it. But I wrote this book. It came out in spring of 2016, so it's relatively new. It has not even been out for a year. It's about journaling, which is a great exercise to do. I love journaling. And there's some really cool things that I'm making this year because of ideas I've had from journaling. So check it out. I love you guys. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, FreshBooks. Thank you mostly to you for listening. I will see you next week. And by see you, I mean you will hear me in your headphones or however you listen to podcasts, because that is the way that we will connect next week. Or feel free to connect with me on social media. Let's be friends on all of the social media. In the meantime, I'm at Katie Dalebout on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. Those are all the main things. Facebook. Love you guys. Bye.
Do you have space?
Yeah, but it's like in a residential loft. It's like it's hard because, like, I'm excited about it. It's like, it's not a step up or a step down. It's just, like, a step sideways and into a new space because, like, I can't just have a storefront, but, like...
The whole Detroit thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't really want a storefront from a responsibility standpoint. And I think that the way for me to actually have a store is to just carry so much BDSM supplies that it, like, offsets the sex toy amount that's there. And if I keep it under 30% sex toys, I can be open.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, but I'm just like, that's going to cost so much money.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to decide whether I want to do that or not, kind of.
Like, do you just kind of, I mean, do you think that the online store is doing so great? Do you feel like you really need to have a storefront? Is that like your
I don't need
goal?
it. But I think it's nice just because I think that, like, I would not want to buy a sex toy off the internet. That's just me personally, though.
Well, it's nice when you can do, like, when I met you originally at that Valentine's Day thing.
Yeah, I've been doing those things. Yeah, I was like, where did we meet? I was like, that was, like, honestly, I think that was my most successful day of tabling, like, of any one individual day tabling.
That was such a great day.
It was so
I
successful.
love Lisa. Lisa's, like, so cool.
She's doing the flower truck.
She's so cool, and, like, she's such a great curator, bringing together such, like, cool artists and cool people in the city, and she knows everyone. And
yeah, one of my friends is, like, her assistant, and like, loves it. So I'm like, yes, thank you for employing my friends.
Yeah, I know, she's super cool. Did you make that?
I did not, but I'm obsessed with this artist. He's super this cool Japanese guy, and he always... you can always tell it's his stuff. Like, there's one in my bedroom by him, and I have, like, a few art books of his. But there's this French art collective that represents a bunch of international artists, and he's one of them. And I found like a book of his stuff at this comic book store in Brooklyn one time.
Oh, cool.
Because I used to, like, flirt with the guy who owned it and would just, like, come in and be like, show me, like, your most fucked up art. And he'd be like, you'd like this. You want light? You want no light?
No, you choose. I'm good with whatever. Alright, so it's gonna be really chill, just like this.
Yay!
Basically, this is just like, you know, conversation. You're good. You're perfect.
Okay.
I was, like, testing it as we were chatting. I like that nail polish color a whole lot.
Thanks. It was called...
Did you do them yourself?
No, I got
Oh,
gels,
yeah, you just said that.
But the color... I was looking at the color on the bottom. It was like, got yourself into a jambalaya. It was like, get yourself into a jam-balaya. I was just like, fuck no. That's the most stupid thing.
It's like the goofiest pun.